offensively, where you've got a boatload of weapons, and injuries aside, not Liam Cohen, he actually did a fairly good job. Yeah, very good job. Josh Grizzard could not figure out how to get this offense going last year. Even when all the weapons came back, he just didn't have a plan to get the ball to those weapons. So who will have a better plan? Again, the Buccaneers have already conducted several interviews. Zach Robinson, a guy we talked about last week, who was the offensive coordinator in Atlanta, where that entire staff has been blown out. They've also interviewed Brian Callahan, of course, former Titans head coach, David Shaw, Israel Woolfork. Some interesting names. I personally, Aaron, and we talked about this last week, and obviously Mike McDaniel is a big name for Buccaneer fans. We'll see what the Buccaneers think of that. I would love to see somebody, and I know a lot of people aren't in love with Zach Robinson, and I understand because that Atlanta offense was a little up and down during his tenure. I think a lot of it had to do with quarterback play. But
yeah, I told you last week they had all the weapons, and they couldn't really do anything with them.
Yeah. But I still like the idea, whether it's him or someone else, of trying to keep some continuity. Obviously, you won't have the same play caller, but to have a similar offense and not basically start again from square one, to me, sounds like a smart move.
I would prefer to be able to bring in somebody into this organization that has success, has had success, that we can look to with a track record. That's what's been so bizarre with Canales and Grizzard and Liam Cohen. There's no track record.
Yeah.
We brought guys in with no track record.
Liam Cohen's play calling experience was at Kentucky.
And I
You know
think
what I mean? Like,
I think the Liam Cohen is the outlier. You got a little lucky, right? When you talk about Liam Cohen and what transpired here 2 seasons ago, to catch that, lightning in a bottle, and look at the success they had in Jacksonville, even with them losing, that was still a very good game and a very successful season. They are a much better team and program. There's no doubt about it. When you look at that franchise, they are much better with Liam Cohen than they were without him. But with that being said, I think you're more likely to find a Josh Grizzard when you're taking a chance like that on a first-year guy than you are to find a Liam Cohen. And what I mean is a guy who's trying to find his way, maybe a little scared.
you're at least as likely.
Yeah, and a guy who's maybe a little too timid to be creative during games because you don't want to make the big mistake. You want to stay in the game. That's why your game plan's like, hey,
well, you better know who the guy is when you hire him. And if timid's part of the conversation at all, then he doesn't need to be.
Agreed, and that's why, and that's to the point, Pat, that I'm making is experience. If you've had experience, you're not going to be timid. If you're Josh Grizzard and you don't have that experience, you're also taking over from an offense that was humming last year. Yeah, when your game plan is run the ball 30 times a game, that screams to me safe. That is somebody who's playing that game extremely safe and by the book. And in this NFL, in this day and age, sometimes you got to have Juwan Jennings throwing a touchdown to Christian McCaffrey to win a football game.
I'm not a big trick play guy.
But sometimes you got to call it, and look, that helped them win the football game.
And to me, what he did in Carolina was beyond safe. It was, to me, if I'm the Buccaneers, it's the death knell. I'm like, I can't watch a guy have that kind of game plan again, because what did we hear when he was hired? What was he going to do? What was the thing that was going to change with this offense? They were going to take more shots. That's what they told us. That's what Josh Grizzard told us in the offseason. They would take more shots. And maybe he just felt like with the protection that they couldn't take more shots because the protection wasn't really good this year.
No.
So maybe that's part of it. But you have to have a plan to get the ball to your playmakers, and Josh Grizzard never did. There's a couple of names, Aaron, on this list who the Buccaneers have already completed interviews with that I don't know if they're just trying to check every box and do as many interviews as possible. But these guys, both of them don't make sense to me. Well, the first one is Cardinals quarterbacks coach Israel Woolfork. Because, and I know they're good coaches on bad teams, but Kyler Murray, because Kyler Murray has advanced so much in Arizona, right? What exactly has, and again, he might be a great coach. There's guys all over this league we don't know a lot about. But what I know about him is that he's the quarterbacks coach for Arizona. that to me is not very exciting and doesn't seem to make a lot of sense.
And anything that happened, I like Jacoby Brissett, who played a good portion as well, but that's a veteran that has been doing this for a long time. So I put what Jacoby Brissett did on Jacoby Brissett.
Agree.
I think they're going to turn over every stone, and that's fine. That's fine.
Yeah. To me, again, that's a stone that doesn't make a ton of sense. The other one is Lions pass game coordinator David Shaw. Now, on the one hand, that's been a pretty good offense for the last handful of years, right? On the other hand, they made a change this year at offensive coordinator, right? And what did Dan Campbell decide to do? Did he decide to go, hey, let's see what David Shaw can do as a play caller? No. He said, I'm taking over. I'm going to take over and call the plays from here on out, which tells me he didn't have confidence in anybody else on that staff to do that, or that he didn't believe that the offense could be good enough if he gave someone else a chance to call plays other than himself. Now, you could argue that's more about Dan Campbell than it is about David Shaw, but if that's a guy that should be an offense, a passing game coordinator who should be on the verge of becoming an offensive coordinator, you'd think that Dan Campbell might look back to him and say, hey, let's give you a shot right now. He certainly didn't do that.
I like his experience on all levels, though. This is a guy who was a head coach in college football, has been a coordinator as well at the college level. He moved up. He's been in the NFL. He's been a part of football forever, NFL before that, before his time at Stanford. So that to me is like a well-rounded, experienced guy. That doesn't always mean that it's going to lead to success, but it's a guy that's been around football for a very long time.
No doubt about it. And like you mentioned, has been a head coach at Stanford, which is not, Little Sisters of the Poor. No offense to Little Sisters of the Poor, but
and he was there for a long time.
It's a major coaching gig, but it's just interesting to me that he didn't get that chance to call plays this year for Dan Campbell.
It's a good point.
And I don't know enough about what he would want to do offensively to say absolutely not, because like you said, he's got a lot of experience, and credibility would probably be a good thing for this football team right now on the offensive side of the football. But there's just, again, there's something about the opportunity to bring in another guy, and I'm not saying it has to be Zach Robinson, but another guy. Shieldhouse is another guy that they've already interviewed last time around.
Sean McVay we talk about all the time.
Yeah, and there's something about keeping that going, allowing maybe Baker. Say it was a Shieldhouse. And again, there's guys all over both coaching staffs that I don't know a lot about. But let's say it's him. Allow Baker to be a big part of creating the offense alongside a new offensive coordinator. Because we've seen when he's had the ability to make the call at the line of scrimmage, at times he's done a good job at that.
Last year, I thought it was important that the Bucs stayed in-house and promoted from within, because we had heard all the good things about Josh Grizzard. And on top of that, I really wanted some continuity in some form for Baker in this offense. That didn't work, and now it's very obvious to me that you have to go outside and bring in somebody with experience. You made a mistake last year. Now go correct it.
I don't know if it has to be experience from that much experience from a play calling standpoint, but I agree. You don't want a guy
more so than Grizzard.
Yeah, you don't want a guy who look like Josh Grizzard with the deer in the headlights kind of look, for sure.